my brain's a liar. That's the mental obsession side of this. So by that point, that second time trying and kind of not getting through it, I have experienced what I was taught called the phenomena of craving, which means when I touch alcohol or touches my system, all my good ideas, all my logic is out the window and I can't stop. My body is saying, you need more, you need more, you need more. You start metabolizing at a high rate. So that's the phenomena of craving part. I understood that. What I didn't understand was mental obsession, which is when you don't have alcohol, my mind will do whatever it needs to make me think it's a good idea to drink.
Welcome to the Sober and Wellness Podcast. If you're a businesswoman seeking to elevate your life and unlock your full potential, you are in the right place. I am your host, Abigail Padro, and I am passionate about helping you achieve your next level. We will dive into honest conversation about sobriety, how faith can be a powerful anchor. My goal is to empower you to become the best version of yourself and excel in business, relationship, and beyond. Let's embark in this journey together, and I will provide you the tools and inspiration you need to live an alcohol-free life. Hey friends, and welcome back to the Sober and Wellness Podcast. Today I have a really special guest. His name is Static. He is a musician with over 25 years of experience, and he has a little bit over 13 months of sobriety. So I'm really excited to dive into his story. And without any further ado, hi Static, how are you?
Good. Doing really well. Glad I'm here. Not to be that person, but it's 13 years, not 13 months.
13.
Both valid. Both valid because it's only today. Like I woke up today and said, today's a great day not to drink and let me continue. And I do my tools. So, but I've been practicing those tools effectively now for over 13 years, which is wild to think about.
Yes, 13 years and some months, right?
Yeah, because it was as of March 9th. This year, 2025, was 13. I don't count ahead. I was taught that we don't cash our sober check until it's the date.
I like that. Well, thank you so much. Where do we start? Oh my God, because I've heard some of your stories because you are one of our moderators in our community. So you're a musician. Let's start with that. And 25 years. So you started pretty young, huh?
Well, 25 years actually working as a musician professionally. I'm 48 years old. I started playing the guitar in February 1991. So I've been playing the guitar longer than that. It was the first instrument I picked up. I was like 14. So music in general was the first thing that made me feel like I could. I had a lot of things in my childhood that made me feel like I couldn't, learning difficulties before we knew what it was and just feeling like a 4,000-year-old alien in a kid's body, didn't know how to talk to other kids or relate at all. Never felt connected. So something about music I was like, oh, this makes sense. It's just whatever it is, the vibration, the sounds, the rhythm, everything is peace when I'm playing. Nothing outside affects my brain or my experience. So yeah, since 91 playing and over 25 years in the industry as a whatever that would be, recording records, touring, or as people say, I'm in the music industry.
And it's a tough industry to be in. You were in a band, correct? As well?
Still in the band. And the industry itself is a business. I guess in any business, there's its ups and downs and there's bright and dark sides. I think what keeps people connected that are ones making the music or touring is when you have a few things. When you have respect and love for what you actually do, because it is an expression, it's still an art. To me, it transcends modern ideas. It's not a job. It could be a job. It'd be nice when it is a job and you pay your bills with it, but that calling that has you make music and vibrate sound like that is with us from the beginning of people. It's so natural. It's so real. So I think when you balance the beauty in that, I feel like it's a blessing that I was given that I could make sound that people might want to listen to. That keeps you grounded. And if you got good people around you, like the family that you create music with, if you have a band or just a few people you could trust and they're good people. And then you kind of have to separate that. Then when you get into the noise of the business, if it's whatever it does, hopefully it never hurts somebody's desire to want to just make music. Because the funny word I always think is interesting is when people say professional musician. I'm like, I respect it and I'm grateful if someone calls me that because it means I might be getting paid. But I look at anybody whoever decides to make that sound in a room in that moment, that's a musician, that's a singer. You don't have to do it all the time. You don't have to be famous or make a ton of money. It's something we get. These outlets are important for our general peace inside. So for me, it's a big deal to really never forget that and keep it grounded.
It's not an easy instrument to play. I mean, I don't think any instrument it's easy, it comes with practice. But I say that because I bought myself a guitar. I still have it here. Let's say I just started it and I had an online teacher that was teaching me, but I have to say it is difficult because the way that you have to put your fingers sometimes at the beginning, it's like when you're riding a bicycle. I know that at the beginning you're like all your senses are like, okay, how do I do this? But with a guitar, it's seven strings, right? Is it?
Depends on the guitar. Standard guitar is 6 strings.
Okay,
Seven
imagine that.
string no, 7 strings came out not too, like, technically as far back as probably the 30s or 40s, but we're using a lot of new metal and hard rock because they add an extra low string. So, but any average guitar you pick up is a 6-string instrument, like guitar. Then there's other instruments with strings that are like different, like the mandolin and the bouzouki. But guitar is 6. You're correct.
Okay, so I remember that I used to try, and I started the first song, "Happy Birthday." Started, and I remember the excitement when I was able to produce the Happy Birthday song. But to be honest, I got a little frustrated because I wasn't learning fast enough to my taste, and I said I'm gonna come back to it, and well, that's still pending. So maybe one day.
And that's the physical part, is the part to get through, because then you will learn faster. That's where people get frustrated, like they're pressing, nothing's happening yet, and you're like, well, and then you're understanding, but you're like, it's just that little bit of digging in and putting that time in the beginning, and then everything else just starts to happen.
Well, let's see. I'll let you know if I ever get there, at least to one song that it's not "Happy Birthday" to you. Okay, so let's hop in. What made you get into this journey of being sober?
So this one that we're currently is like become part of my life. Signs were earlier because I had, again, those difficulties I had when I was younger, where I felt like music set me free. There was, what am I doing the rest of the day kind of feeling, and I still had this not feeling connected to people around me and whatever was happening in my head and school and learning and knowing now what I know. I was basically seeking out alcohol and or substances by the age of 13, and maybe not all the time at 13, but that's when it started, because it made me feel something that I couldn't find most of the time normally. And I was basically self-medicating, treating something I didn't know with the wrong medicine, what I didn't know what I was treating yet, because I didn't know what was going on. I just didn't feel, something was just not there. Years later, I would find out more when it came out to diagnoses that explained some of this. But the combination of seeking it to try to change, I guess, how my brain felt, and at a really young age, there is some definite data and science on when you start at that age of 13, you're creating a situation where there's a good chance alcoholism and addiction is going to happen, because it's not a developed brain at 13. Mm-hmm. Even just experiencing the chemicals was already kind of setting up the neural pathways to respond like an addict's. And when I look back at that time, even in high school, I could say, like, wow, that does show all the signs of addiction. Maybe, again, there wasn't the calamity, and I might not have been doing it all the time, so there was none of those big warnings yet. But in my sobriety, when you kind of go back and do your inventories, I was like, wow, my behaviors were already happening. My behaviors were already happening prior to me touching a substance for compulsion, obsessive behavior. So I feel like I'm positive I was born this way, and it's fine, because once I found out there's another way to be, and then it's okay. The first time I thought it was actually maybe a problem, but I didn't understand how to get proper help, was in November 2000. When I thought it was a good idea that I didn't drink anymore, but I didn't look at it. I didn't know what else to look at. I just said I shouldn't be drinking anymore. And I didn't know, like, there was a whole group of people out there. There's always a group of people that want to support you. I didn't know anything about living without alcohol. I looked at it like, well, I guess I can't have this. And that lasted about 11 months because I thought I was okay. And as soon as I picked up again, I was just all over the place. There was no moderation. There was no responsible version of it. That lasted another bunch of years until about 2005. I guess the end of December, I had another experience where I felt like, oh, wow, this is getting out of hand. Enough's enough. At that point, I'd been around other people. I was in my mid-20s. The first time was 2001, was probably, I was 24. Yeah, I was 24 years old in November. I was just about to turn 25. And then in 2005, I just turned, again, like that's, I was starting to see the difference because I had friends that just wasn't ruling their lives. They didn't overdo it anymore. They were 29. They were getting on with, like, I guess whatever a standard life would be based on social constructs that we exist in. But at that point, I was also in the beginning of my music career. So I wasn't living the same schedule. I didn't have the same responsibilities. So I kind of fell into the fact that there is a party available if you want it in that world. I think there's one everywhere. Truthfully, I will never blame the music industry as being a place where this just makes you, no, it's not that. It might be easier to get away with it for a while. You can mask it a little quicker, a little easier, because it might be somewhat socially acceptable for a musician to show up on stage with a drink. You're not going to show up in an operating room as a doctor with a drink. Most jobs, you can't have a cocktail with you. So yeah, there might be some blur where you could get away with it a little more. But once it becomes a problem, then it's a problem. You're not doing your job. You're still going to lose your job. It's also a very wonderful industry to find your way to sobriety in, because by nature, we're kind of out upfront, showy people. It's our job to be kind of like, hey, we're here, whatever it is. So people who change their lives are very out about it. So you could quickly see that there's a whole bunch of people that aren't living like that. So as soon as I realized, like, this is what I want, I had people to run towards. But in 2005, I wasn't around a ton of those people yet, but I was around some people living a sober life. And there was a particular person that looked at me and said, like, hey, I'm not here to tell you what you are, but I see a lot of similarity in your patterns and the way your rhythm of the pacing, that you're just, looks like you're finishing one and you're reaching for another. And this person was sober for a little bit, and it hit me. I was like, oh, yeah. So then I just said, you know what, maybe I'll try this. And that was the second time trying, a little more like connected to ideas that anybody who's been doing this with support, like a support group or a 12-step program or a place like the community that you and I know each other from. I was only like scratching the surface, knowing like, oh, I'm going to count days. I was doing that, but I still never looked at it like there's a better life for me. I just got to deal with this thing and not drink and drug anymore. But I was like counting days. And then that was the first time people said, like, you know, if you need help, I could take you to a meeting. And I was like resistant to all of it except for the counting days. And then 11 months in, I felt like I'm good. I'm okay now. I didn't know what that actually meant. Now now I know that was my brain playing tricks on me. My brain's a liar. That's the mental obsession side of this. So by that point, that second time trying and kind of not getting through it, I have experienced what I was taught called the phenomena of craving, which means when I touch alcohol or touches my system, all my good ideas, all my logic is out the window and I can't stop. My body is saying, you need more, you need more, you need more. You start metabolizing at a high rate. So that's the phenomena of craving part. I understood that. What I didn't understand was mental obsession, which is when you don't have alcohol, my mind will do whatever it needs to make me think it's a good idea to drink. In those first two times of trying those 11-month runs, one in 2001 and one in 2005, my mind's trick was saying, you're okay now. It'll be fine. You can moderate. And some people, that might be their truth. That's not mine. Like I said, there was obsessive behaviors in me before I even touched the substance. So, but I wouldn't, again, this is looking back now, I didn't know it then. So that lasted 11 months. And then that next round was, I went it progressed. And I was taught it progresses. Like every time we might come back to it, we kind of pick up where we left off and then elevate from there. So it got worse. And it got to the point where it was ruling my life more and more, and had me make a lot of bad decisions and just not be there. And it got to the point it was so bad that I was in the last time, which is this current 13-year and so many months version of this. I had a person in my life that was observing it, and it was a newer relationship. And they said, I didn't sign up for this. I know what this is. I've seen it before. You should probably consider a different way. And I remember waking up after that episode, repeated episode, that was just going to be the last one, and saying, okay, I will change now. I need to do something different. It was scary in the beginning, but thankfully at this point, I was around so many people functioning in life as sober people, especially in the industry that I was a part of. Like I knew a lot of sober musicians, and I was really enamored by them because they were just so laid back and functional, and they didn't get sloppy. Like I was seeing the difference, but I didn't know a way out yet. And then I just buckled down and had a little more connection to why I was doing this. In that time, I guess, I have a lot of, my program that I work for me is spiritual based. So I rely on the guidance of a power greater than myself. So now when I talk about it, I say, I guess at that time, my higher power, the God of my understanding, or just, I call it God, let me see some things to keep me there, to show me this works. And it was amazing because within the first few months, like I actually felt my playing get better. And that's an interesting thing because you're just like, well, wait a minute. I thought I even got around this stuff because I thought my playing, my playing still came first. My music was first. I'm like, well, now I feel more connected, and my thoughts are clearer when using the instrument. So I started to see all these things that really inspired me to keep me there. And I started finding recordings of musicians talking about their sobriety journey. And I felt real connected. I was like, whoa, that feels just like me. So I felt that thing of relation, which is all building up to why we have peer-based self-caring groups and why we're taught to relate, not compare. And we can hear the similarities. So that was doing really well for about 11 months. Again, there's 11 months. But I felt like I was unraveling a little bit because I didn't listen yet. I didn't go to meetings. I didn't do all the suggestions, but I had people around me that were a part of a sober program, like a 12-step program. And they would basically had me doing the things without me knowing. Like one guy's like, well, if you're going on tour, do me a favor, call me every day. It's like, okay. Then another guy, when I got on the tour, the first guy who told me to call him said, when you get to your first show, because there's like multiple bands, after the night's done, look around for people who aren't partying, drinking water or club soda. You'll see them now because you'll look for them. Sure enough, when that after event happens all the time, there's a bunch of people not drinking that I didn't pay attention to before. So I went over and introduced myself, and sure enough, there was a guy who had a bunch of years of sobriety, and he's like, hey, I go to meetings every day. You want to come? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm not sure yet. So he would come back every day and just start talking to me about stuff. Things like that now is normal for language, like topics and ideas, and like talk this random conversation about surrender or do the next, like all these things. And I'm like, but I would talk to him because it was interesting. I didn't realize he was going to meetings and then bringing it to me. He was doing what we're taught in this to carry the message. And eventually at 11 months, I called one of them and said, hey, I still don't feel like really right. And I'm kind of unraveling right now. Like, are you ready to go to a meeting yet? And then it all changed. Doesn't mean it was all perfect. It's just that I knew finally, I definitely don't have to do this alone. And there's a place I really belong. And then that was it. It was after 11 months of, as I look at it now, as being a dry drunk, untreated alcoholism, that I walked through the door of a 12-step program back home where I grew up, near the same place I had my first drink, and raised my hand and said, I have no idea what I'm doing. I need help. And everybody looked really happy. And that was really weird at first because I was like, why? Everybody's smiling. And then when the meeting was over, they all surrounded me, and like someone gave me literature, and they told me this book, because there was no online, of all the different meetings in the area. And often like little tips, like good coffee near there, great pizza there. And it was just like, I'm like, this is kind of really awesome. Like people are just really trying. And then I just jumped in. Now there's many points along that journey where maybe I didn't jump into all of it. I didn't pick up, thankfully, but I wasn't fully understanding the surrender or maybe the full freedom of sobriety, but I was way freer than I ever was. But also someone told me, well, how free do you want to be? And then most people say like, well, I could use more. They're like, well, then you could try this, meaning like whatever it is, like go to more meetings, do the 12 steps, take some, whatever. And that's for that type of recovery. There's similarities in all versions of what people work. But the idea is whenever you feel like it's getting a little tough, there's different things you can add to your experience. So go for it. If it's not going to hurt you, then why not? So if that kind of lays out what got me into it, was I guess I was always there. I just never went through the front door until 11 months into this 13 or year or so run. So technically that would have been February 2013 was the first time I went to a 12-step meeting.
Wow.
At
You
30 some, how old was I? Maybe 35 at that point.
35.
What year did I say it was? I'm born 76. 36.
Okay. Wow. You said a couple of things, actually everything is very interesting, but the one thing that stood out as well is the self-medication. I truly believe that a lot of us use alcohol for some sort of self-medication or numbing agent. I consider myself a binge drinker, which means I will never be that person to moderate, because I had to be honest with myself and say, I don't care about moderating. Like, there is no benefit of me having one glass of wine because I won the bus. And sometimes it's hard to get there, to realize that, right? Because you don't want to. You start by saying, I have a problem. And when we start labeling ourselves, we're trying to go, instead of doing the work, we keep doing the same things. But I thought that was really interesting. And also, you mentioned instrument and sobriety and the fact that you started playing better. The reason that caught my attention is because I've heard a lot of people that say the other way around, especially when it has to be with creativity.
I say that when I hear that, that's their fear that they're talking about. Most people who put the time in to find themselves will all say they got better. If you listen to like interviews with really famous sober people, say in the music industry, none of them say that they lost their creativity. But it takes a little bit. It might not be as easy if it's not out of a shot glass. It takes a little longer to light some incense and learn some breathing or meditation, or change the color to lights in your room, and ground yourself. Because when we find that space of peace, it all shows up. But if it's something people are still learning their pathway, and if they're still into haze, because there's multiple places. We're either using, so now we're not using. We have no substances in our body. But if we're not working on, if I wasn't working actively on then me, my emotions, my behaviors, my brain, then I would just be this leftover version of somebody who used to use alcohol and drugs. We still got to build new ways of thinking, new ways of feeling, coping, managing emotions. And managing emotions is two things. There's the first round is because we're thinking like, oh, I'm uneasy, or I might be angry or fearful, or I act out, or I'm snappy with my family and friends. Like, those are all valid and super important. And then we might work on those. But then there's the other ones. How do we facilitate inspiration, calm, happiness? And it's all available. It's just that's where, when I have people tell me like, well, you don't drink anymore, are you still involved? It's like, I wasn't drinking when I showed up. That's why I have like simple sayings. I came for my drinking and stayed for my thinking. And once you put the drink down, for some of us, there's some people who will put alcohol and drugs down, and all of a sudden life is like, boom, got a new life. It's great. That's amazing. I'm really happy for them. I love coexisting with them, but there's some of us that's not like that. I put alcohol down and actually was one of the worst versions of myself, was in the 11 months without help, without any guidance or understanding. So yeah, I think that tends to be a big fear. It doesn't make anybody less. It just makes want them to know, if they feel like they lost the creativity because they didn't drink, that if you lean into a different way, it will come back. It's just, that's the fear. It's like, oh, I'm not the same anymore, because that's what you're used to doing.
Yeah.
It's like if someone moves a doorknob on your door and you keep going to reach for it before realizing it's moved, you're in the midst of doorknob. You have to stop and reevaluate. It's like, oh, this doorknob is a foot higher now. I have to get used to my hand going a foot up. I always tell people, simple thing how our brain works. Do you not find a light for the bathroom in your own house? You just know. Every time you have a new house, you're just smacking walls. You visit a friend, you're like, where's that light? Because we get programmed for this. So now we're reprogramming every aspect of ourselves, and hopefully the best ways.
I love that, because it is fear of changing your normal. We all get, and as you get older, it's even harder, I believe, because you're very set in your ways. And definitely change is always uncomfortable. Whether it's for good or bad, doesn't matter. Change is always uncomfortable, right? Until you get normalized, let's say. So that is very true. Fear to change your normal. Can you elaborate a little bit for people that don't know what a dry drunk is? Because that's a term I didn't know before
So
doing all of this.
again, that this is not to, some of these terms may exclude different experiences for certain people, and it's not meant to make them feel like something's wrong with them. It's only if somebody hears what I say and they relate to it, we fall into that certain category. Because there's multiple categories of alcohol abuse, you know, in the broad spectrum of human experience. Coming from me, who identifies as an alcoholic and an addict, that uses a spiritual-based 12-step program to find my peace, we have a very distinct qualification. And that means just putting alcohol down alone is not enough. That's when we start. I keep talking about working on character defects and my behaviors. There is, even in that program, reminds us that there are people, like I said, that if a doctor said, you need to stop drinking, they just stop. And they're like, okay. But most alcoholics and addicts, even if someone told us to, we can't just stop. We might be able to fight it off for a while, but then eventually it comes, the brain gets us. That's the mental obsession part. So the dry drunk or the untreated alcoholic, if you identify as an alcoholic, is when you're not actively using the substance as the problem solver or the coping tool, but you are not also working any other coping. So your behaviors, restless, irritable, and discontented, would be language they use. Lightly sometimes joke around, say like, I'm just an a-hole. I'm just not a nice person. It's taking over. Fear is taking over. And the amazing thing is all the behavioral defects, when I really work on them and look at where they come from, they all come from fear anyway. And fear connected to its self-centered, selfish service. That's what it serves. Fear helps with the self-centeredness, which is not something I want to help with. I want the opposite. So it's very selfish of me to be fearful. And not selfish in the basic understanding. When people think selfish is like you're not going to share your pizza with somebody. It's just that everything is pointing at self, which then breaks my awareness of the world around me or anyone else. So me being fearful is focusing on whatever's going on with me, then I lose my awareness to something bigger. I don't know where someone in the program, one of my meetings over the years, we were having a fear-based topic meeting, and they like leveled it up as they were, the person sharing it was a Marine, and a United States Marine. And they have a whole way of talking about fear too. And he like showed me some quote. I don't remember. It might have been from some famous general or colonel. And they borrowed some of the language from the Bible, which some 12-step programs borrow language from all great belief systems. And it basically breaks fear down to something simple. Fear prevents us from doing the right thing when called upon. And that's not what we could do. And so when he described it from his point of view, is being there for the people on the left and right of him, just like most people like that are kind of brought up to understand that it's about getting that next person, making sure they're safe. And then in the grand scheme of life, in a sober life, I wouldn't know what the right thing is. Will I go back to lying? Will I go back to being deceitful? Will I be manipulative to get what I want? All these things that I was taught are defects of character, and I believe it. For myself, I'm not here to tell anybody else what their defects are. And it all results in fear. And then when I could get rid of fear, then I could pause and be like, okay, there's no reason for me to be any of those things. There's another way I could live. I could do the right thing. I could always do the right thing. And the opposite of fear is to have faith. And most people don't know that. The Latin root word for faith is fidelis. And what do the United States Marines use as their constant saying for each other? Semperis fidelis, or semper fi, which is always faithful. That language is also found in belief systems. That language is also found in a lot in the early 12-step programs. Again, not that they're directly, it's just a beautiful coincidence, which I don't actually believe, I don't want to use that word. It's a beautiful dual occurrence. I don't believe in coincidences. I think they all happen for a reason. That a group of people that are so structured and disciplined, but have this connection to the idea that always faithful means you're going to be there for another. And then I'm hearing about this because now I have friends, I didn't know about this when I was younger, talking about this stuff, who also happen to be in recovery too, or I start seeing the parallels. I'm like, whoa, discipline is also part of it, but discipline's not enough. for a peaceful life in sobriety. I was actually heavily disciplined and compliant on what they taught me in the program, but I left out something major for almost 8 years. Full surrender. Full surrender to the idea that there was something greater than me that would give me help me with sobriety or return me to sanity, which is for me and people in that program is acknowledging a power greater than ourselves. Some call it God. You call it whatever you want. You could describe it however you want. No one tells you what to believe in. They just ask to believe in something. And at the very least, believe that everybody else in that room believes something. As the example, because everybody's supposed to be happy, joyous, and free from that vice, that prison.
Faith, for me, faith actually is my number one value. So faith is very important to me. Prior to sobriety,
It's connected.
Yeah, it is very connected. In my story, right? Since I believe in God and I'm very open and I don't call it anything else, energy or anything like that, I just call it God. It's something that he was telling me already since 2018 or 19 to let that go, that I will see my full potential afterwards. It's easier said than done, right? Sometimes we have these things that you would like to, but you're not willing to do the work. And you said full freedom came with sobriety. That's how I feel now.
Full freedom came with surrender. Sobriety. Sobriety let me find out what freedom could be.
So I love that because yes, surrendering, it's a huge, huge thing for anyone to do. I really believe that when you believe in God, it is easier because you have someone that helps you out. Trust me, I really believe he has helped me out here. But I do experience that. I was telling a friend of mine that it's trying to live this life is the one of my wishes for him is to one day have freedom from alcohol, from that thought. Because sometimes we give it so much power within our mind. It's a constant thing, especially at the beginning. You know, I'm 19 months, I'm still a baby, and I don't take it for granted, but I believe God has helped me and he has given me that peace where I don't struggle with cravings or anything like that. Now, I'm not saying that that's not going to happen anytime, because it can, especially maybe if a triggering situation like I am really mad or something really strong happens. But when you no longer have to think about alcohol, I truly feel free. And that's where my creativity started. That's how you are in this podcast. I always say it came out of me being obedient to God, because for me it comes from a place of being obedient. And it has led to so many other things. And I am looking forward. It's not always easier, but it is definitely better. I love who I am now with all my imperfections. I am accepting who I am, because before I was running from it and I was using alcohol to numb that area instead of doing the work, which is very uncomfortable. So I like that you touched on that, because it is true. We all have different issues. Humans, we all do. Something that I heard the other day that I want to get your thoughts on it. It was about anxiety. You know that a lot of us suffer from anxiety from so many different levels. But I heard this person say something very interesting. Anxiety usually comes when things are out of order. And that made sense, because for me, alcohol just took my whole life out of order. My priorities were down the drain. They were gone. I couldn't see it, because once I have that taste in my mouth and that dopamine hit, everything else becomes secondary. I'm just fixated on that moment. And I thought that was really interesting that, you know, sometimes when we do this kind of work, I think you should start by looking at your life and see, okay, what's out of order?
A lot of it. That's all of it. To me, it's so connected to that. I'll keep going back to saying it's not just putting down the drink. For a lot of us, there are people, it is just putting down the drink and life just falls back in order. I mean, I come from a place where we discussed the idea of I was powerless over alcohol, meaning when it's in my system, that whole thing I talked about before, once it's in my system, I don't have a logical thought. I'm not going to follow the plan I originally had, and I'm just going to metabolize and consume more and more. The second part is my life became unmanageable. That's kind of separate from even having alcohol in my system. My life is unmanageable, period, which I experienced in the 11 months without support was like, wow, I'm kind of a wreck and I'm not drinking. So that to me is so real. And that's, you're very much on target with that idea. Even talking about the freedom, I wasn't taught I was getting freedom from alcohol. Once I showed up, the language I was taught was I would be relieved of the bondage of self. Alcohol was just a part of it. Alcohol was actually the solution until it wasn't. Because in the beginning,
I
when I
like that.
drank, it worked. It was treating something. And often in a way that was manageable until it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be honest when we realize then it wasn't, and allow ourselves amazing gift of being truthful to ourselves again. Yeah, it might have worked for a little bit, but I can actually point out a lot of times where it definitely didn't, and that's enough. Because once it doesn't go back. It's never going to work again. At least for me, I know that. And I know I
Mm-hmm.
fall into the category of many, I don't know if there's millions of people at this point that connect those kind of dots. And again, I'll always say that's not everyone. But if
Correct.
someone's like me and they hear this, then they know, okay. Because that's what I heard. I heard people that were like me. Because I also knew people that stopped drinking and things were fine. They never drank again. I know
Mm-hmm.
people that drinking's not an issue. Like they don't think about it. It's not connected to anything. They can say
Mm-hmm.
yes or no, or who cares, or say yes and never touch it. So, what you're talking about is once we remove alcohol, then we have us, and then we start looking into all the things about us. Like, what do we got to work on? Well, I tend to be, you're mentioning anxiety. Well, that anxious feeling, well, why am I feeling anxious? And I love how you described things are out of order. That's a really good, clean acknowledgement of it. And for me, when things are out of order, I immediately feel trapped, like I'm cornered, like a small animal who's cornered. And when small animals attack, you might first think, well, they're angry. No, they're scared. So I was able to take all this stuff and take every behavior and go right back to this self-serving fear that the most aggressive, which could come off as like a big version of me, is actually coming from the smallest place. I was scared shitless because I was trapped because I have nowhere else. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I could spin out. Thankfully, after lots of the work, as we call it, I see it happening quicker. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I just go, uh-oh, I know what's happening. And it's now, as much as it's some of the most hardest versions I experience, it's really clear what's happening. And it does manifest as more of a, I don't want to say, I don't have a diagnosis for it, but it's way closer to the traits of like a clinical anxiety. It'll show up in, but then I'm like, why is this happening? And I love how you mentioned things are out of order. Things aren't going how it was laid out, or I thought it should be laid out. Now I feel cornered and I'm trapped. I don't know what to do. So I start getting scared, and I'm going to fight my way out because my natural response is fight. Everybody has fight, fall, and freeze. We might experience all of them at different times, but my first one is always going to be some form of fight, which then
Mm-hmm.
I can't be there because now I'm angry. I'm out of sorts. I'm off balance. And if I lean into the old behaviors, this is why they're so focused on helping us with our behaviors, character defects. Anger is a unique one. When we give in to anger and let ourselves like feel any touch of vibrational rage, there's a chemical with that that's a lot like the chemical I don't get anymore, at least in that way. And when I realize it happened, I actually have the same amount of regret, shame, and I immediately want to get mad at myself again. The thing that makes many alcoholics and addicts pick up again after they stopped, or even if they stopped for the day, is that feeling of shame. So when you get to that repeated behavior of waking up the next day saying like, I know this is not right, but then you feel like crap and you're like, I'm just going to drink again because I don't love myself. I don't respect myself. I feel shameful. I feel broken. And it's very easy to treat that with the only substance I ever knew worked back then. But it's not as simple as it can't come and get me. So if I lean into defects, like I said quickly, is like the anger, and I act out in a way that's not going to work, and all of a sudden I realize, oh man, that was awful. You were really horrible to that person, or you just don't like yourself. Or even sometimes I can act out and not direct it towards anyone and just let myself go there. And then I feel that chemical rush from the anger. And then I come down off it and I feel like I'm hungover. I remember those feelings. I feel like all the drugs left my system and now I'm self-loathing. And if I self-loathe too much, my brain will be like, you know how to fix this. My brain's not telling me I know how to fix it the way I learned really truly fixes it. My brain will tell me, you could use alcohol, drugs again. You remember what that feels like. It's a dirty, angry. My brain, left to its own devices. Someone mentioned once, like, I'm squaring up against myself. It's like I am. But the version that has no moral compass, that will fight as dirty as it can, is the disease of alcoholism for me and addiction. And I say sobriety, and the kind of sobriety that worked for me, the spiritual based, allowed me to trust my gut and my heart. I still don't trust my brain alone. My brain alone is not a safe place to be. So if I'm trusting my gut and my heart, I'm acting out in a direction that I feel I only get from God, as somebody who calls my higher power God, because it worked for me. It exists for me. And I report to duty every day, like, what do you got to do? What do I got to do? What do you got for me? How can I serve? Even if I'm in a dicey situation, like I feel like I'm working and something's not going right and there's lots of energy around, like, I'll pause and I try to remind myself, like, okay, which direction am I supposed to go? Where am I serving best? Because right now I'm getting tense because I'm trying to serve me. And serving yourself is like serving ourselves through selfishness is different than standing up for ourselves in the sense of, like, I need self-care. I need to go to meetings. I got to eat well. Let's sleep. Let's not overwork. Let's not get taken advantage of. That's caring for me. So then I could serve whatever I'm tasked to be of service to, and then not be selfish with it. So it is not complicated. It's just, it's actually not complicated when people who feel that works for them just let it happen. I turn it over. I'm not in the driver's seat. I put God at the wheel. I like the terminology of being the agent of my higher power, as it was written in the literature of the program I'm from. They give you like a few choices. You could be the agent, higher power, or it's like being the actor to the director. They give you this whole like paragraph because they really want people to say, like, not be scared of preconceived bias of maybe if they had issues with churches when they were younger, because it's not church, it's not religion. It's just the idea of getting outside of ourselves, which will find a lot of people after time to be like, I get it now. And then you just find yourself maybe getting more into a faith, but it's separate. It even says it at the end of the whole ride of the 12 steps. It reminds us that even if we found ourselves being more open now to a faithful practice, like saying, like, after that experience, you're like, you know what? Maybe the church I grew up in is okay, or maybe let me go with those other people to that place. They remind us to do all the stuff that we do to connect with our higher power, separate and first every day. Step 11 for me for everybody, is maintaining my constant contact with a God of my own understanding or my higher power. I still have to have that conscious contact every morning. That's when I report to duty. And that's my prayer in the morning. Like, what do you got for me? How can I best serve? If there's somebody in need, alcoholic or not, because it could be just going outside and somebody's struggling with a dresser at the back of their truck, and me saying to myself, am I going to drive past them because I think I'm late, or am I going to stop my car and help them not struggle and to just call the person I'm going to be late for and be honest? That's what I say before about fear prevents us from doing the right thing. If I'm scared that I'm going to be late for my job or whatever I'm going, I'm going to drive past somebody that might be potentially get themselves pinned under a dresser trying to get out of their truck alone. But if I remind myself that human being needs help, that's the right thing to do in that situation. Majority of my situations, that's the right thing to do. I could just call and be like, hey, I'm going to be a few minutes late. I was helping some dude carry a dresser. And if I say it that way, most places, most people you're involved with are going to be like, oh, that makes sense. And someone could say, like, what if your kid is, like, you could play all kinds of hypotheticals and then you'll know the right thing. If the school called and your kid's bleeding at school, not to be so crude, well, yeah, get to school. Yeah. That outweighs that. But if my job is, as much as I'm grateful for the work I do, where I have multiple versions of work, you see me in some of my work, and but I also still teach music, I play music. I think 5 minutes late to teach somebody a G chord is going to be fine if that person that I saw struggling carrying something is not hurt and helped. I know it gets deep, but my whole existence.
No, I love it. You know what I'm doing? I'm writing it down so I can touch on certain things. Okay, I cannot keep it in my head as we go. But I'm going to start with something you said that myself, I had a problem with. Well, you know that the AA, I've only gone once, and it was a great experience. But it took me, after being almost a year and a half and listening to a lot of you guys talk about it and stuff like that, to go, and also to go with someone else. But one of the things that I had a big issue was with that statement that you said, I am powerless over alcohol. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it's because it will hurt my ego, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure, but I love what you said, because you continue. Sometimes context makes the difference of the content. So when you said afters inside your system, that makes a huge difference. Because if you leave it as alcohol is powerless, it's like, come on, really? That's it? Like, it didn't make sense. It didn't hit. But it is true, because especially, for people like us, right, that we are binge drinkers or going to these vendors. Yeah, because sometimes you will be able to handle it. I handle it, quote unquote, I don't know, 85 to 95% of the time. But the other percentage, I don't care how small it is, you never know what can come out of that.
You're saying
That's
10
scary.
to 15% of the time.
Yeah. So
that you don't handle it. So think about every time you drove a car, you drive off a bridge 10 to 15% of the time.
That's big. That's huge, actually. And another thing that I wanted to touch in is, you remember that day that I share that I was really stressed out, that I went and got myself a sushi and got into a meeting, and I share, right? Because that day I was just feeling, I think I haven't felt like that in a very, very long time. And I was not triggered by all means to drink at all, but I didn't like the way I was feeling. And I went back to what works for me and went to my toolbox. I got into a meeting and I shared with you guys, and I felt so much better. I ate my sushi by myself. But I started thinking, what's going on? Why am I feeling like this? I couldn't pinpoint, because it was not a one situation. It was like little things here and there. And then it's going to all come up to fear. I was worried. I was worried about certain things that were not going in a certain direction that I want, from my career, my real estate business, to other stuff. And then I'm like, what have I changed lately that I'm feeling this way? Well, let me tell you exactly what it was. I put God first. So I was doing that. I was getting my Bible. Even I have this right here, which is a little devotional from Joyce Myers. I read, and I wasn't doing it because I went to the busy, busy, hustle, hustle, go, go, go. And I left my foundation, what keeps me center. It's not that I stopped drinking. It's the fact that I am anchoring myself in my faith. And that made sense. And I don't know this verse by heart, but the ones that said, by worrying, are you going to add one more day of life to your own life? And I started going like Proverbs 16:3 said, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. Right away, it started changing me from the inside out. Alcohol doesn't do that. None of that. The next day I would have woke up a lot worse if that was the old Abby. But the next day I woke up, and guess what? I was happy. I did again. I got my Bible. Everything, by the way, I'm not saying that it's magic, but God exists and he moves. And I believe that for me, my lesson was like, you're too busy. I'm at where you left me. So I had to go pick him up again, right? Because he lets us be. And that's what I learned in that lesson. It's don't forget what are your priorities, because even when you're in sobriety, you can forget your priorities, whatever they are. For me, it's my faith, my family, in that order: faith, self, family. Because self, I mean, if I'm not healthy, taking care of myself, I cannot be good for anybody else. But that's what I learned. Look, if that was a long time ago, that old Abby would have went to a bar, I probably would have started drinking when I went to do my nails. I used to drink there. Probably 2 bottles of wine, and kept going all the way till 1 a.m. to wake up the next day with a hangover. So with that said, when you become aware of what are your triggers and you sit down with your heart emotions, because they suck. I have to say that for me, this journey is simple, but it's not easy. That's how I can put it. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Has lots of simple solutions if we use them. Just like you said, you used it. You remembered. You reminded. And that first thought is always going to happen. That's the test, the momentary test. And I always say, stand square up against your first thought. And then we have all these other options. If we were like, oh, I see you first thought. I know what you're trying to do, but I'm going to do this because I have all these tools that I keep acquiring. So it's almost like we shouldn't feel bad for the first thought. We should actually feel pretty good and empowered when we're telling the story that I felt like maybe I was triggered or activated in a way where my first thought was going back to what I used to think would be a solution. I said, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to a restaurant. I'm going to feed myself, even if it's something nice that I really like, because why not? And go to a meeting. Well, then the first thought is gone. You chose other thoughts. The bondage of ourself, and then if we're if we're an active physical activity of addiction, not saying the dependency of addiction, like that's our resource. All we had was no thought. We like to say it's the first thought, but if it's like, okay, something's not working, I'm grabbing a drink. Well, this is not a drink. This is technically a drink. It's liquid, but this is like a healthy, weird thing I drink. But I'm grabbing that. That's not even. I mean, that's less than a thought. So the first thought, when we realized it was the first thought, we were already in a better place because we see writing on the wall. Now we have a decision. And remind ourselves, why are we doing this? Why I don't want to do that. And now the reason we say, keep coming, stay, pick up all the tools, because then you look to the other side and it's not just one other thought. There's many other thoughts. We basically have to quickly assess what's going on. It's like, why am I feeling like this? Like, wait a minute, you haven't eaten. Sometimes just eating, you're just like, I feel better. Hydrating. But for people who practice 12-step or spiritual-based recovery, and if that works for us, we get this other incredible gift if we actually lean into it. Part of this second thought is the pause. And now use this big tool, which is the pause, and we just talk to our power greater than us. If it's through prayer or however you want to call it talking. Okay, wait a minute. I'm a little off right now. What am I going to do? That alone just, again, changed the rhythm, because the old one was activated, grab a drink. Now it's like, hold on, pause, lean on a power greater than myself and say, what do you got for me? And then now all these other ideas get to show up. Basically, we're making space. Putting alcohol or drugs down is already the beginning of making new space for new ideas. And if we have this pause tool, which is not only for people with spirituality in any means, a pause is a pause. It's a moment for ideas to swirl. And for those of us that go spiritual or have faith, we acknowledge and we're comfortable with, and we're fully engaged in the idea that these thoughts are getting, essentially downloaded to us from not us. And I like that better because I don't like my brain. Like, okay, you're going to give me some new thoughts and I'm going to run after it, whatever it is. Make a phone call, go to a meeting, feed myself, and it's all connected. For 12-steppers that do spiritual-based recovery, it's relationship repair. And we're repairing 3 major relationships: the relationship with ourselves, with God, or a power greater than ourselves, and then the people around us. Well, the people around us, we can't repair that relationship without those other 2. And that's the connection. And I think that is the thing. If that doesn't work for somebody, I know there's many other ways for them to find peace without substance or even the bondage of self. I think 12-step programs are not religious on purpose, and they are allowing people to find their own version of vibrational concept, because all they're really asking you to do is not rely on yourself in certain moments to then be able to rely on yourself. They're asking you to pause and let new information in. There's humility in that, the willingness, those key factors. It allows us again to let new information. That's all they're asking is for a second. What are your options? It's not just one, and it's not going to come from you directly. And
it's like taking pressure of yourself if you believe in something, whatever you might choose.
Way easier. I got to say, for me, I never want to make people feel like it's the only way, but I think there's a way to speak about it when people realize, but they're like tired out of trying to rely on themselves. They feel beat down. They feel like, is there another way? well, then that might work for them. But I got to say, once I fully let it go and said and surrender to it, I'm like, this is way easier. And surrendering is many things, like full acceptance that I am textbook alcoholic addict. I love it. Once I figured that out or surrendered to it and believed it, amongst the group of guys that I do a book study with in a 12-step program that have 30 years or better, some of them, and I was already 8 years in at that time, I was like, wait a minute, this is so much easier because I was amongst the solution. I wasn't sick with my own brain or the chemical. I'm like, so just fully accepting the fact that I'm an alcoholic as they described. This is awesome because that's one tiny paragraph that identifies the alcoholic amongst hundreds of pages of solutions. And then if I can't remember all those pages, I've already been fully surrendering to the fact that, well, I have a solution. It's pause and look for guidance. And then maybe it'll click. Call that person who knows more information. Like whatever it is, it's just, it's a good rhythm, which allows us to be present. The version that we're talking the other way, we're not present. We're running away. You quoted something that you said might not be the exact words, but you said something about worry. Would you say, what is worry at? Is worry add a day to our life? How did you say it?
That we're getting worried will not add days to your lives. That's something
it
in the
actually
Bible.
robs. It takes, because you're not present. And it's real. I actually love to see the rest of the wording, but on the basic hearing of it, the way you're describing it, it goes hand in hand with what they talk about in recovery, because they talk about things like the if trap, like we're future tripping, because what happens is we're there and we're not here. And what is here going to be? Here could be sitting with our families having dinner, but then worrying. So we're not fully experiencing whatever's in front of us. And that's the obvious one. That's like almost at times easy for people to think, well, I'm with my parents or my family and I want to be there for them. But I'm understanding after years of this that being present, period, is we could use the word magical, we could use the word wonderful. It's just so real. Like to be at a point of calm where I just let go of anything, that I'm not worried about anything, even what time it is. And I could just look at the person at the counter, or maybe I'll be at a store, and just be present with them for 1 minute. But why not? That's what I'm here for. What else am I possibly on this planet for? To worry about tomorrow and miss today? I have no guarantee of tomorrow. None of us do.
I love what you said about pausing, because we live in a world that we are so busy, and we are like our attention, it's called out by so many different streams. You have so many choices that I think our brains are overstimulated as it is. And I think we were not created to be that way, because when you're overstimulated, for me, most of the time you're going so fast that you're losing what you have, which is now your present. And that's something that I've learned in this journey, how to quiet my mind, which is very, 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 very difficult for me, even to sleep. Sometimes when I'm going to bed, it's like I see my friend as a little person, and it just gets up and it's like, okay, now is the time that we're going to think of the million ideas, because I have ideas over and over and over and over. Like they're different. If I have my businesses, then, well, if I do that, if I do this, and that is exhausting, by the way. It is. But I have learned now, I have tools sometimes that help me. Last time I couldn't do anything for my life, and my brain was just going 100 times. You know what I did? I turned my TV on, because at this point I just like, okay, I'm not going to keep thinking. I was exhausted of thinking. I put a National Geographic. I love sharks. Well, I love to see sharks. I mean, I'm really scared of them in the ocean, but I think they're just a magnificent creature. And that, just listening to that voice, and that calms my brain to the point that I can shut it off for a minute and pause it. Let's just put a pause. And then I was able to fall asleep. But alcohol does not help that at all. It actually feeds it. Maybe you will forget about it, because something that I think we're not aware is that when you drink, it's instant, right? Instant gratification. You remove the problem, because you said something important. It did the work for a while. It did the work for me until it didn't. But the next day, then you have the thoughts you had the next day and more.
Yeah, you don't remove the problem. You cover it and drown it so you can't hear it, so you won't work through the problem. And then it comes back and collects its debt the next day or further down the line. That's the
Well, I
scary
like
part.
that.
We
It
thought it
collects
removed the
debt.
problem.
I
But yeah,
like that.
alcohol's a debt collector. It comes looking. It's going to
I
come
love
looking at the
that.
worst
I'm gonna
time.
use that.
Do
I
it.
love that.
Repeat
Yes,
it.
because people will understand that, that language. It will collect its debt. Like, yeah,
Because it's
buddy,
not
I
removing
helped
any
you.
problems. It's just pushing it down so you don't actually feel it in the moment, where hopefully all the other tools we learn let us work through that problem so it will always dissipate and become less and less of a problem as the days go on. So there's no debt.
Hmm.
Nobody's looking for us after. Because
How
to
do you
face it,
call those loan sharks? Are those the
yeah,
people that,
like very much at least that's the image in my head when I said that was like a bookie
yeah,
or a loan
yeah,
shark or just like in the movies.
yeah, that's really good.
They start breaking glasses in your store until you pay them. Good
Where's
old
my
protection
money?
tax, yeah, extortion, quality neighborhood based extortion, just like in the movies.
About one question, since we're coming to an end,
Hmm.
and I always ask everyone this question. For a person that it's contemplating or is at beginning or it's at the is in the beginning of their journey and they're struggling, what will be your advice to them?
That's contemplating or at the beginning of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they're contemplating about trying, it's just try. Doesn't mean it's easy, but you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose from a bunch of days not consuming a substance that was once affecting you. But don't try alone. There's no reason to do it alone. There's no proof. Like, I did it for 4 months on my own and now I'm going to go. No, join a community. Join a community while you're figuring out what you're going to do. Majority, I can't speak for all because I don't know all, but all places where people could find support for this kind of experience, the only requirement is desire. I mean, even in the community we're from, it's like, I know there's a good likelihood there's people in those meetings sitting and listening that haven't put the drink down yet, but they're hearing it work for others. So just join a community at a gate for technical reasons or like importance. If you are physically dependent on alcohol, you have to do it through a medical intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people might think we were physically addicted to alcohol, but if you could go 24 hours, if you didn't drink every day, you don't have the same physical dependency I'm talking about. There's places they could look up that resource. Those are usually people who are drinking multiple times a day to even keep existing. That's a physical dependency that can be incredibly dangerous to detox from on your own. Now, majority of people aren't like that. It's just you start weaning off and you collect, or you start just one day, wake up, don't have a drink and keep moving on. But I'm not going to tell anybody what to do unless they know what their medical condition is, regardless if they even go to a doctor to help them. Just try it. Why not? What's the worst going to happen? I mean, and I don't judge people that drink once in a while and it doesn't harm their lives, but we're not talking about something that's necessarily good for us either. If I wanted to feel better physically, I'm going to do a drastic diet to get back in shape. And then maybe after a while, I could start eating some of the things I used to love to eat. It's just standard operation for a person when we want change. If we're in it in the beginning and we are trying some of this and we are with the community and we feel like it's not connecting, if you're anything like me, going back to drinking is not going to make it better. I proved that already. And that maybe we just need to find some additional and different tools, which could be going to more of what we're going to if we're in a certain community, looking for therapy, finding different kind of support, trying other programs. Maybe some of us are better suited for 12-step or IOP. You hear that word a lot. Intensive outpatient. Some people might need to go check into a place for a while. The thing is, if you're starting this and you feel like it's not working, 9 out of 10 times, it means drinking is not going to work. And I know it's dark to say it that way, because if you stop and it's immediately working and you're kind of like, life's better. Well, that's a cool version. That works. Those people, it's great. But the idea of taking something away because you thought it wasn't working and now things still aren't working, that doesn't mean that was working. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of
It
a
makes
riddle,
sense.
but it definitely means that wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to figure out what is the best pathway to fill us up with the things that do work. There's a reason we showed up. Anybody who showed up or even said they've tried to do like a sober month or all these challenges now, there's a reason why that was even interesting to you. Because if something wasn't not working, why would you even know there's sober January?
Mm-hmm.
Like it wouldn't be a thing. And again, there are people who are like, they live at a certain pace and they want to clear out for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, sober January for them is actually really easy. Really easy. And that's why it might not be an issue. But if it's an issue and it's difficult, the idea, will just fill your life with more things that are positive, that'll help. More meetings, more community, more people to connect with. Like I said, therapy, maybe if faith-based works for you or spiritual-based program, like just find it, try it. What's the worst that can happen? You don't like it, try something else. And the cool thing is there's so many ways to get help. There's not just one way. But just go look for it. Just do it. Stay.
I like that. I like what you said. To start, you don't need to let everything go or drop to drink. I think sometimes that's the number one. People get scared. They stop.
To start being part of a community. The experience for some of us is putting down the drink, but it's like there's really no one way. It's kind of like there's a, I want to be cautious though. If stopping is a thing we're doing, this kind of playing and splashing into puddles isn't going to work either. And there's no shame in what someone's path is. But if we're like, well, maybe this is a little too hard, so I'm going to splash around a little bit. I don't like permission for relapse. That's not in anywhere in my brain. In the message I carry, the message I carry is, if a relapse happens, you're not defective. Nothing's wrong with you. You're no different than me. And just please come back. So when we have people that come back, they're like, I'm back on day one, and there's a lot of weight, a lot of sadness and shame. I'm looking at them like, you're incredible. You literally went back out and said, no, I'm coming back, and woke up today and you're not drinking again. That's a real badass. That's a brave move. That's strength. Release the shame and just know you never have to drink again. Just do this, what we do every day. But I always want to be clear, like, this isn't relapse permission ever. We have the chance to never relapse. We have a chance to not have it happen. However, in the event it happens, we need massive relapse forgiveness, acceptance and allowance of ourselves that we're back and we're gonna keep moving forward. And I'm not sure if I'm making that clear enough, because you can see how it could go wrong.
No, but you're
like
making
it's like, I
making
might as well
sense.
slip. It seems like it's okay.
Yeah. Giving yourself permission. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like giving yourself permission to keep doing it. It's not what we're saying. I'm just saying, for a person, like, for example, when I started with a 30-day challenge. And you said it. If you're a person that has no issue whatsoever, that's never going to cross your mind. Let me have 30 days or sober January, or let me just see if I can. If you're already asking that question, usually it's because deep inside, I knew alcohol was not serving me. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about. People that are in that stage that they're contemplating it. But once you start the journey, yeah, for me, I did the 45 days, then something happened and I decided to go back to drinking. I didn't negotiate. I just said I'm going back because that's what I knew. But then after that, I couldn't unlearn what I learned those 45 days from the science, from the way I felt. And then I started again, and it's been 19 months since that last time. But I don't negotiate my decision. I never question it. There's no room for me to even think about, I'm going to take it again. I don't like to say I will never drink again just because I don't like saying that. But for me, that's not an option. I know it doesn't make sense when I'm saying it, but that's just the way it works for me. For me, alcohol right now, it's something that no matter the circumstances.
Yeah. And I'm not going to sit there and say forever either, because that doesn't work like that. I know what I'm doing today. Simple. I don't have to worry about forever. That falls into that worry thing you're talking about. I'm not going to think about forever. I have a lot of evidence, and I know what's best, and I have proof I'm better off not drinking or using drugs. But I'm not going to sit there and think about, I know I got to wake up every day and repeat all the things that work. That's it. Simple as that.
Well, thank you so much, Static, for sharing everything that you shared today. Spreading the message. I think that it's something that we all should do in some way or shape or form, whether it's helping one person on a phone call or doing it in a podcast. But it is a message of hope that we don't need alcohol in order to live our best life. Actually, for me, it's the other way around.
Yeah, and there's a whole best life out there that's way easier to find without alcohol holding us back, or whatever our vices. Remember, there's any of these obsessive behaviors could manifest in different ways. Some of us connect because it manifests with alcohol and drugs, but anybody with that adversity of like something is controlling us like that, we'll find a new life. We just got to kind of push it out of the way and allow ourselves to show up.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And guys, like I always finish this podcast. If you're a person that is interested in talking a little bit more, or you're interested in starting this journey, I'm going to leave my website down on the show notes, and you can get a 45-minute discover call for free. So thank you so much. And I see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, Static.